All right. All right. All right. Let's see how this looks, see how this feels. Just gonna give everybody a few minutes here, guys. To have a little chat skis on the YouTube live skis. Can you hear me? Let's get the technical stuff out of the way. If you can hear me, just comment below, my friends. Very important YouTube live today. Very nice to be here with you all. I thought this time would work well for the UKers. So that's what's happening today. A7 Nightmare can hear me. Awesome. Annie Brown. Good stuff. Yeah. We'll just go through a couple minutes here, guys. Let people come in. Get yourself a nice cup of tea. A nice cup of coffee. Water. It says tea with Dennis, but you don't have to drink tea if you don't want to drink tea. That's fine. I will not hold it up against you. Found this really cool. Look at this rock on the beach. Very smooth. Very, very cool. A magical rock. Hope everybody's doing well. Send me a little comment skis at the bottom. Let me know how things have been going for you. And I know that during the healing process, it's very, very easy to talk about things that are still missing from a person's life. I have been there, trust me. But let me know how things are going. How are things proceeding? Tell me some of the ups from your healing journey recently. What's been working for you? Any big moments of clarity in the last week or two? Whew, epiphanies? Pow. Let's hear them, my friends, because these lives are really nice. I get to kind of just chat, sit back and chat, tell you guys a few things that have been on my mind in relation to my own progress, and get to interact with you guys. So, and I didn't really give you all much time with this live, so I apologize for that. Sometimes it's just really random with me. I'm not the kind of guy that likes to really plan things out. If I feel like it's the right time to do a live, I'll just jump on and do it. Okay, so we're going to definitely take some Q&A, some questions in a bit, guys. I love Q&A, and I want to get to Q&A as soon as possible, of course. But Annie Brown has been doing a bit better. Hit that exhaustion stage. Yes, many of us know that stage quite well. Literally bedbound. I've been there. Yep. Does not feel good. No. What's interesting with the stage of exhaustion was it was kind of a few elements to consider when it came to the exhaustion for me and a lot of other people. One of the elements was, of course, the amount of mental action that was continuing, that really started to weigh on me physically. That was one part of it. The other part was this this other side of me that liked the exhaustion or liked me being bedbound because it kind of kept me away from experiences that lower part of me didn't want to have. So there's a lot of unconscious motivation to the discomforts that we feel on a daily basis when it comes to the anxiety healing journey. And it's important to consider that end of it, my friends. It's important to really consider that side and go, well, I'm not just this one linear person. You know, there are different parts to me, and there's a part of me that likes to be the victim. There's a part of me that likes to hang on to the anxiety and likes to give a lot of attention to the irrational fears. There's a part of me that likes to hang out in my comfort zones at home, or consistent thought patterns and behaviors and such. So there's a part of me that really likes all that, mainly for the sake of protection and for the sake of familiarity, yes. But I'm going to go into these stages a bit, and I want to kind of touch on what stage you may be in your healing journey. And this is quite important, actually, just to kind of pinpoint where you are and what to do to get to the next stage, if you will, on this healing journey. Because all of us everybody here is in a different stage in the healing journey, and it can be quite confusing, right? But it can also be quite linear once you get to a certain level. So we're going to go through all that. Let's see here. Parallel fin. Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for stopping by. Oh, thank you for recommending the channel. My friend, that means a lot to me. It really, really does, guys. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. A7, the hardest thing I've ever done. It's almost like stopping an addiction. That's a great way to put it, really. Constant urge to revert to old habits. I completely understand what you're talking about. It can pull us back in that direction. I completely understand where you're coming from. And in terms of where you are right now, I want you to know that you will progress from one stage of this anxiety healing journey to the next stage and on to the next stage and so on, at different times and at different speeds than other people. So it's important to take into consideration that you are in a certain stage, and there are certain things that you must come to understand that before you didn't really understand or do to get to the next stage in this anxiety healing journey, my friends. And the first stage, really, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this stage, and maybe you're there, or maybe you've been in this stage for a number of years, and the stage is known as franticness. The frantic stage, right? Yes, the further along we are on our healing journey, and you can call it the higher levels of consciousness that we do move towards, the less frantic we become, okay? So franticness in terms of this stage, this is where people look for quick fixes. Give me the quickest way yeah, it is early, I know. But I wanted to get it in because there were a lot of people wanting this time. And I will be on chatting for a little bit and taking your questions, guys, for the next little bit here. So nice to connect with you all. You can't really blame people that want a quick fix from anxiety or their emotional state, the constant mental chatter and the negativity. You can't blame them because it's just such a dark place, and it's such an overwhelming thing. You know, in the franticness stage, it really feels like you're moving through a really dark tunnel, and there's a little bit of light. There's a dim light at the end, but the light isn't very large. It's just very small and very dim, and you sense that it's there. But at the same time, the tunnel is so long and so dark that it's so difficult to see that little dim light of clarity, epiphany, and progress, right? So in the franticness stage, maybe you're here, okay? Comment below. This is definitely not a one-way thing. This is a two-way thing, and I really want to hear from you guys all the time, ongoing throughout this live. In the franticness stage, it's about quick fixes, it's about scattered thinking, and it's about catastrophic perceptions. So you look for quick fixes. Your thinking seems like it's just everywhere. You can't really pinpoint one way to think about something, nor do you feel like you can pull your attention onto one thing. It just seems like everything's taking up your attention and your focus and your energy, and there's just so much information out there that it just feels like franticness on the inside, even though physically it may not feel like franticness, if that makes sense. All right. Catastrophic perceptions, yes, there's a bias there where it's, you know, we really have to, in the franticness stage, you really have to give your full attention and energy on anything neutral or positive, because it's so easy to default to the fear and the anxiety and the negativity and the pessimism. It's so easy to just default to that world in the first stage, which is franticness, okay? Awesome. So comment below if you feel like the franticness stage is still lingering there from time to time for you, or you're new to all this. Comment below if you're new to all this and you're just starting to feel the franticness of it all. Maybe you just got diagnosed with some kind of anxiety disorder, or I don't know, something physical that's really emotionally related, and you're in this stage with these elements of franticness. Comment below, because okay, I know where this person is, right? And I really want to know where they are. And Chris, how are you, Chris? Chris Simpson, can you please touch on a higher... You know, while we do these stages, let's take a couple questions in between, so we're kind of going back and forth. Is that all right? Comment below if that's all right with you guys. We'll do the questions, and I'll also chat about a few things. Can you please touch on a higher resting heart rate and shaking hands like tremors? I tried to overcome it and it turns into a panic attack. When you try to overcome it, you will add more. You're basically resisting the moment. And if you resist the adrenaline and the cortisol and the alarm system that's taking over your body, if you resist it, if you try to do something about it, all you're doing is adding to it, Chris. Later on in these stages, we're gonna touch on a certain stage where I don't want to give it away, but just to touch on it, there will come a time, Chris, where you will have a higher resting heart rate, or you will have heart palpitations, or like me many years ago, you will be in the bathtub and you will see the waves of water, right? Kind of like wavy, and your heart rate is just so hard that you're just thinking, how can there not be something physically wrong with me? That's kind of the thought that kind of lingers in that very moment. And in that very moment, you will find that you can be at peace with what it is your body is doing. And in that very moment, when you can find that you are at peace with what your body is doing, that's when it starts. That's not when it ends. Okay, this is important. That's when your healing starts, right? When you can get to a point where you feel like you can be at peace with whatever your body is doing, because let me tell you something. you're not in charge of the perceptions that are coming from your body, right? So you could be going through the day, you could literally be sitting on a park bench, and it's this beautiful autumn day, and everything around you is just beautiful, and it's just super calm, and there's nothing frantic about the outside, there's no stimulation, there's no phone, the air is fresh, and you just feel like you're kind of panicking, or you feel like you're having anxiety in that moment. And the people that are really deep into this healing journey will allow their bodies to do whatever it needs to do in that moment to go through the experience it needs to go through and not resist it. So that happens later on in later stages, right? I understand, Chris. I'm sorry to hear that, what you went through there. I know, it must be very, 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 very difficult, and all of us go through such experiences. Not an easy thing to lose a loved one there. But let us refocus our attention here on what needs to be done from here on out in order to be, and this is so important, to be at peace with whatever happens in life. Right? To be at peace with whatever happens in life. That doesn't mean that we don't get emotional. That doesn't mean we don't ever get negative. That doesn't mean there's no grief when we lose somebody. That doesn't mean we don't have momentary moments of guilt or blame. That's not the idea here. The idea is not to never experience these negative moments or states. The idea is not to allow those things to dictate you as a person, to dictate your overall emotional well-being. I wonder if it's better like this or like this. That's better, whatever. I don't know. In the post video, it'll probably look a little strange, but whatever. As long as you guys can see me, it's fine. It's all good. So random. Just jumped on here. Chris, you're very welcome, my friend. Just you hang in there and you keep getting the information that you need, and understand that, you know, there's so much love coming from me to you, and so much love in this community and this beautiful people that are getting the right information from me and others who have been in those shoes. And I promise you, you will come out of this 100 times the person you've ever been. Just have faith. My opinion on anxiety medications is that there's a time and place for them, 100%. There should absolutely be no guilt whatsoever, because there comes a time in a person's life where they just say, just give me, I just want to feel moments of relief, right? And so sometimes that means an anxiety medication has to be taken at times, but I do highly recommend that you look at that world as being a complement to you for the very moment, but it's not the end-all be-all. The cure comes from doing the inner work and releasing yourself of the compounded negative emotions that have been weighing on you mentally and physically. That's where the work is done. But to get the relief temporarily, to begin seeing things differently, there's nothing wrong with anxiety medication in my books in that way. So that's the mindset you want to have. Rely on them fully. It could be more challenging. Let's just say that. Yeah, so that's that. So franticness stage. So we go through that franticness stage, and I wonder if anybody's in that stage that we just talked about. Please ask the question again. I might have missed it there. And then we move into doership stage, guys. Doership stage is kind of a, you feel like you just need to do in order to heal. Like the more I do, the better it's going to get. And That's kind of right out, like right in between that franticness stage, where it's like the more information I absorb, the faster I'm going to get to where I want to get to. The more meditation I do, the more reframing I do, and this is when people spend, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on their healing, and they come out of it with quite a lot of good information, but nothing really practical and not really any progress other than the fact that they've got symptom type progress. So doership, if you're in the doership stage, you have to recognize that the doing at this stage will only get you so far. Yes, it will be very, very informative, but at the same time, it's not, there's no real balance there in terms of how to approach your anxiety healing journey. You're basically feeding into the anxiety being in the doership stage, if that makes sense. And a lot of doers are people that, when they were kids, they were told they needed to work really, really hard at their grades or a certain sport or stuff like that, there was a lot of pressure on them, and then maybe there was some terrorizing in the house or neglect, and they had to work really hard to get a result or to get the acceptance from an authority figure. These are the kinds of people that move those habits into the doership stage in their anxiety healing journey. So comment below if you feel like you're kind of in that stage, and we'll keep going up the stages as we take a question in between. Yeah, unknown. I do. I personally have been in that place. I think it's kind of a combination of two things. Unknown. Number one, it's a combination of the need for acceptance by other people. And there's also a fear of being rejected by other people. So what this mainly comes down to is not really recognizing your own self-worth. People that don't feel like their self-worth is in harmony with, other people, or feel like they're kind of low on the ladder in terms of what they can provide or are providing for the world, that low level of self-worth will translate into tippy-toeing around the world, especially other people, in the hopes of not letting other people down, displeasing other people, stepping out of line. Maybe there was your parent that was really, really hard on you, and now you feel like, well, if you show your true colors, and if you are not, if you, for example, if you're not overly nice, these are the kinds of people that are overly nice, and they pay the price with a lot of anxiety. Right? These are the people that walk around with a lot of fear and also a lot of internal anger because they can't seem to give themselves permission to be their true selves. So that's the stage that you're in, okay? And I just want you to know that it's important to recognize your own self-worth in this. Once you start recognizing your own self-worth in this and recognizing some of the things that you have achieved and some of the things that you can provide for other people, this is you 100%, okay, so it's a very common thing. I want to express the idea here that this sort of behavior, this sort of attitude approaching the world isn't really the updated version of you. This is the child version of you that is still afraid to project who they really are, unknown, okay? So what you want to do daily is just recognize that deep down when that scared part of you shows up, that it's not you, and you want to parent yourself, okay? So you want to get to a place where you parent that side of you that's afraid. I'm looking for acceptance by others. I'm fearful of rejection by others. Just if you were a great parent, how would you respond to that inner self that is so afraid to be their true self once again? Let them know that the past is over, and let them know that they can approach the world not in an overly nice manner, but in a kind way, in a truthful and honest way. So it comes down to reparenting yourself in those moments where you feel like you're tippy-toeing again. Just give yourself a little bit of a quick pep talk or a word that will break you out of that state and bring you right back into a place of inner freedom. Let's see here. Does that help? If it helps, let me know. If it doesn't, let me know. Was abused when I was a child. You got it right. Okay, so it's common stuff. Really is common stuff. All you have to do is reparent yourself. That's all you have to do. Understand as well, guys, that you're not your feelings, you're not your emotions, you're not the thoughts that come and go in your head. You're not, if there is a disease or an illness, you're not the physical discomfort. You are none of these things. These are just bodily messages that are telling you that there's something you need to look deeper into. There's an emotion that's been hidden in your body for far too long. There's a feeling that needs to be expressed to somebody, and you need to really, like I mentioned, reparent the part of you that is underlyingly fearful of everything in the future. Anything that feels like it's outside the comfort zone, the lower self or the inner child will look to prevent you from moving in that direction. And all it is about reparenting. So you're in the right place here. I tried practicing the word flow. Good. Yeah, so that's, you're only a day or two into that because you only learned that a day or two ago. So without putting too much pressure on yourself to make it work right away, use the word flow. Use the word flow. Let those feelings and emotions flow right through you in that very moment and come back to who you truly are. More often than not, we have to really get to know who we are, because with anxiety, we forget. We forget what it's like to be peaceful. We forget what it's like to be in harmony with nature. We forget what it's like to be free and childlike again. Because there were just so many crappy programs coming from other people that we just started to embed into our brains and our bodies. And now a lot of what we're doing now is unlearning. Unlearning. Don't try to learn all sorts of new stuff. Just notice that you're just unlearning some of those old patterns and habits, right? Good. Get used to flow. Get used to it. Get used to it. Familiarize yourself with it. You'll get there. I promise you, you'll get there. With enough patience, persistence, and with an attitude that doesn't look to make this work right away, you guys will get there. So first franticness, then we go to doership. Can you recognize with doership? Mark Selefkario gone past the doership phase. Okay, so he's past the doership phase. Interesting. Once we get past doership, we move into reflections, which is interesting. Now, you start to you find more moments throughout the day where you're reflecting on your present condition or your present wherever you are. You're kind of going, well, look at me, like, here I am. How did I get here? You start reflecting, like, how did I become this person? I used to be so, you hear that a lot. I used to be so, right? So this and so that. That was me a few years ago, like, damn, And so there's a lot of reflection going on after the doership stage. How did I get here? What do I do next? Where is my energy being spent? What is anxiety? What perpetuates it? What are some of the traumas that I really need to come to peace with, come to grips with, and reframe? So there's a lot of that. So maybe you're in the stage where you're reflecting a lot. Comment below if this feels like it's you. From stage, we'll go to a question as we drink tea with Dennis. Today it's water with Dennis, so enjoy. Water in a wine glass because, hey, why not? Why not? That's what I say. Why not? Oh, I believe chronic anxiety can cause such symptoms as vertigo. Absolutely. Um, I believe overwhelm and vertigo go hand in hand. A lot of the times, low blood sugars and vertigo go hand in hand. But from an emotional standpoint, I think mentally there's just way too much mental resources being used up. Magnesium's always, I always like to go to magnesium for any kind of vertigo issue, so you may need to look into that. But yes, I believe there definitely would be a connection. Azael, I feel that. I feel that. I made great progress and don't suffer from anxiety that much anymore. Great to hear from some time now, but it feels like I'm still have to search for something to work on. So, yes, so there's the doership part coming up for Azael where, hey, I feel pretty good, you know, but there's a part of me that doesn't want to get too comfortable in this stage. There must be something else I have to work on. So once you set that kind of intention unconsciously later on in the day or later on the week, you going wrong. But if you start really embracing this dolce far niente, the art of doing nothing, or the what is it? I forgot. The art of doing nothing? Because with anxiety, when there's nothing going on, it feels like there has to be something going on. Right? There has to be something that I'm mentally involved with, or something, some problem to solve, or some place to be, or, the sweetness of doing nothing. So if you can master and if you can allow yourself to be in that state of inner peace for long periods of time, then you will start to see things a lot clearly, a lot more clearly than you used to. Let's see here. Nick, I bet you said it right there. L'arte di non fare nulla. Oh, how beautiful that sounds. Italian is like music to me. Let's see here. What was the question? A7, I don't know why, but it seems my brain triggers anxiousness a lot. Well, very common. When I concentrate on video games, well, common, or work on the computer, I also catch myself bouncing both legs. That's a physical response. Why would that be? Because your brain doesn't know the difference between the person in the video game and you. Give that one some thought. Okay, the brain doesn't know the difference between the movie that you're watching and the main character and you. Yeah, there are some physical changes that you can make while you're playing video games or watching the movie, such as deep breathing practices, such as posture work and the sorts. You can do certain things to lessen the adrenaline load and to show your system that you can be in a calm state, but these sorts of stimulative acts are can be very, very taxing. Let's put it that way. Can be very taxing physically and mentally. So you want to limit your time with any kind of fun, entertainment, or stimulation, especially in the late evenings, okay, prior to sleep. So please take all that into consideration, my friends. After reflection stage, we go into targeted inner work. So what's interesting here is that after all the reflections, we start to go, okay, I've reflected a little bit or a lot, and now I have a much better idea of what I need to do to move forward away from this fear-centered prison. We become clearer on what we personally need to heal. Because you'll notice that in the doership stage, you'll go on Google and you'll type, what's good for anxiety? Well, one person's story is completely different than another person's story. So if you're going there and just kind of grabbing this and grabbing that and trying this and trying that, then you're going to become very, very frustrated. The question is personally, with you, what is it that you need to make peace with? What is it that you need to express, and to who? What traumas are you carrying in your body? So this is a very personal journey, right? And you really don't move beyond the fear until you get very real with yourself and get very targeted in your work, right? Targeted. So in this stage, you find that your work that you do for yourself is more targeted, okay? Does that resonate? Dennis, what to do if I feel that the world is a scary place? Never feel safe, always scared. Nobody will like me because of the way I look. Here's what you do. All right, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. Find an environment that feels the most uncomfortable, because Muhammad, first and foremost, it's not scary, it's just an uncomfortable feeling. Okay? So you got two ways to perceive what your body's going through. It can either be a scary feeling and therefore the environment and the world is scary, or it can be an uncomfortable feeling and the presence of everybody else or you being in a certain environment is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. That's what it is. It's not scary. Okay? To the inner child or the lower self's perspective, they may want you to perceive it as being scary so you don't go there. But the lower self or the inner child no longer runs your life because you're here now. So any kind of interpretation that comes from that really anxious side of you is from your past and no longer plays a role in how you act and what your attitude is today. So that's where we're going, guys. But here's what you do. You find the most uncomfortable environment. For me, the most uncomfortable environment was the waiting room at a hospital, because I spent so many days in that same waiting room, waiting for a bed to take my blood tests, to take the MRIs, to take the scans of my body, to do all these things, and everything came back negative, and I left with some kind of relief that my body was fine. When my body's fine, my lower self or inner child looked for something that could go wrong on the outside and created generalized anxiety. So there's a cycle, constant cycle. But I went to the waiting room. I sat in the waiting room. No phone, no book, no conversations with anybody. These are all distraction mechanisms from you facing the very feelings your inner child doesn't want you to face. Okay? No distractions. None. I went there. I sat in the waiting room. I closed my eyes. And as I closed my eyes, I, over time, with the intention of getting comfortable in that environment, I surrendered to everything within that environment and all the feelings that were showing up as anxiousness. And I did that day after day after day. Sometimes somebody would come up to me and say, "Hey, are you okay? Your eyes are closed." Completely fine. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Eyes closed. So you go to an environment that through your lower self is interpreted as being scary when in fact it's just uncomfortable. You close your eyes. Hopefully you're not anywhere that's, there's machinery or cars, and you don't do any of that. Eyes open are fine too, but it's a lot deeper with your eyes closed. And you find that you can surrender and take in all the senses that are taking in information from the outside, and you allow yourself to just be. That's what you do, and you do that at the park bench, at a park, in a playground where kids are screaming. You do that in a certain room where you used to have panic attacks at home. You do that at the hospital waiting room. You do that without turning the car on in your car. Okay, that's another place and you make peace with the environments in the world that your lower self doesn't want you to go to. Does that make sense? Comment below. There are definitely other elements to this, but this would be the simplest way to make peace with the outside world. Allison, I would say that I am completely recovered at this point. Cheyenne, good to see you. Does that make sense? Take some notes, Mohammed. Couple things there that are very important. Very important. Notice that I changed the perception from something being scary to uncomfortable. And then that there's something there practical that you can use right now, right? So those are important ways to make peace with peace. Because we're not healing this until you make peace with peace. Until you stop going to your phone. Until you stop looking for sensations that are actually, that to your lower self could be physical diseases or illnesses. We need to make peace with peace. Okay. Let's see here. So you got the targeted inner work going, right? So the targeted inner work, that's a nice stage. You kind of have a better idea of what you need to do for you. And then comes the disassociation stage. In the disassociation stage, you become detached from your lower self. Lower self to me is unconscious. Middle self to me is conscious. Higher self has a lot to do with spontaneity, intuition, and connection to source. So for me, what's very, very important, and you should write this down, the anxiety healing journey for me was a combination of bridging three things. Okay, the mental aspect, the physical aspect, and the spiritual aspect. I truly believe that you need all three of these things to keep moving up the stages. So, yes, you can mentally understand something, but physically, you're not doing the things physically that you need in order to allow the new mental programming to take its course, right? Spiritually, in the spiritual realm, it more so feels like you're kind of working together with something rather than feeling like you're doing this on your own. So that's really as simple as it is. So yeah, now, you went through the franticness, you went through the doership stage, you went through the reflections, a lot of reflections. You went through the targeted inner work, so now you kind of have a better idea of what you need to do for you. And then there's a dissociation where you're starting to disconnect from your lower self. So any anxious feelings, you're going, well, that's not me, that's my past. Right? Isn't that wonderful? That you feel an anxious feeling, like that's not me, that's my past. That's not me, that's just my lower self holding on to something from the past. I no longer associate myself with that, so that's not me. So in that very moment, what starts to happen? You start to surrender to it. You're no longer frantically looking for a solution, like I have to find a solution to this uncomfortable feeling now. No, that was way back in the doership stages, right? So you start disconnecting, you're starting to see things clearer, you're starting to go beyond anxiety, and finally, after all these stages, you get to a place where you find your true self. Finding your true self comes down to the allowance of things, to the allowance of life, to the allowance of uncertainty, to the allowance of fearful thoughts, to the allowance of anxious bodily sensations. So finding the true self means allowing. In a deep sense, it means surrendering to all the things that you feel, all the things that may or may not happen on the outside. And so that's that. Oh, thank you so much for that donation. I2 Legend VT, I really appreciate it. Thank you, my friend. So write these down, guys, and really understand these stages a bit more deeply. Stage 1 is franticness, followed by doership, followed by reflections, followed by targeted inner work, followed by disassociation, that is the disconnection from the lower self, and then finding the true self. So where are you? Where do you live most of the day? Is the best way to kind of go about this. Where do you live most of the day? Comment below. Comment below where you live most of the day. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear it. One other thing to keep in mind is this, though, like, as much as I'm sharing these stages with you, there will come a feeling of, okay, I get these stages, but mentally to wrap my head around this information is a little bit overwhelming to me. So you may feel that. Now, I'm not asking you to spend a lot of time on this, on the stages. I'm asking you to familiarize yourself with where you live the most often today in relation to these stages, number one. And I'm also asking you to start understanding the importance of separating yourself from anything that may be an element of your lower self. That's all I'm asking you. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. I too, Legend BT, thank you. So we, awesome, thank you for engaging, guys. It's really, really helpful to see your feedback on things. Since I've been watching your videos, Vincent Triglia, I am now aware that I need to place myself, I'm guessing, where I feel afraid, places where I'm afraid, like big crowds, and overcome those fears. Yes, well, that's an element to it, isn't it, right? When you do any kind of exposure work, such as like bringing yourself physically to a place that is uncomfortable, or a place where in the past you had anxiety. Wow, Vincent, thank you so much. That's a very, very generous donation. When you're like, okay, I need to face this, and I need to go to that environment, and I need to be with this person or people, anything that's outside of your environmental comfort zone, please make sure that you have rapport with your lower self before you go in to those new environments. Meaning, you connect with your lower self in a way where you are parenting your lower self. You're not frantically fighting through an environment. So let's say you're going for dinner. This is how it would go. Eyes closed, lower self. I have so much love for you, and I completely understand why you don't want to go for dinner. I understand that there's going to be people there, and you wouldn't know what to order in the menu sometimes, and it's difficult for you to make those decisions, but let me tell you something. I'm there for you, lower self. I'm there for you, and I will be there every step of the way. So let's approach this dinner in a slow manner, and let me prove to you that this experience can be safe. Okay, we'll do it in a slow manner, and we'll do it together. Let's go. That is a perfect way to approach an environment where your lower self feels uncomfortable towards, right? Because that's what anxiety is. Anxiety is this fear, is this conscious and unconscious fear of what may take place in the future. Should we do this and that, and think this way or that way? So it doesn't take a lot of back and forth, but it does take some kind of a new relationship building process with the anxious part of you, right? Does that resonate? Comment below if that resonates with you. I'm trying to keep it as practical as possible in terms of exposure work and moving forward with all this. And have you been doing that recently? Let me know. But a lot of people ask me, like, Dennis, what was the turning point? What was the turning point? Well, the turning point was understanding that there were different parts to me, and one of those parts was a very scared part. Again, we refer to that as the lower self now. Very scared part, very, very anxious, like a baby, crying for attention. A baby cries for attention long enough, the parent will give that attention later on in life. The baby's still within us, still crying, still trying to guide us, still trying to redirect us. And it's up to us to parent that side a little bit more deeply. But people ask me, Dennis, what was the turning point? The turning point was when I realized that there were different parts to me. Right? I wasn't just one person that was a slave to the anxiety. It was a slave to the fear. I was a slave to my body. I used to be such a slave to my body. Like my body would signal some kind of a sensation or symptom, and there I was tugged this way and tugged that way. I'm going on Google. I'm talking about my sensation. I'm doing something on the outside, but in reality, all I can think of is the sensation on the inside. It was all consuming. Hey, Matthew, what's up? Good morning to you. I think the UKers are just waking up now, so that's cool. That's cool. So the turning point for me was recognizing that I had many parts to me. I had many parts to me. I'm not just this one linear person. And I will no longer be a slave to my body. It's me, the updated version of me, the conscious version of me. That is the one that dictates what the body does, what the body is. And honestly, I think Osho said it best where he said, expect miracles. Now, you wake up in the morning and you expect sensations and symptoms to be present. Yes, that's the very health, anxiety connected world. But what if you wake up every morning and with a miracle, with a sense that a miracle can take place? Like today, I no longer, not the miracle of the fact that the sensation symptom won't be there, but the miracle as in, I'm no longer going to allow the sensation, the symptom, the intrusive thoughts to dictate my mood and dictate my emotional state. That in itself is a miracle. For me, that would be a huge miracle. Dennis, from last September, Dream IGN, I am having evening anxiety. It's been 8 months. When the sun gets down, my heart starts to palpitate, and so many intrusive thoughts are arousing in my mind. Solution? Yeah. Well, there's a number of different things, but let me go with what intuitively I feel like would be best in this moment for you. First and foremost, watch a sunset, and as you watch a sunset, there's no need to look to control what your body does, but it is very important to place a new meaning on what's taking place. So as you're watching the sunset, I want you to give priority to and add feeling to what you are looking forward to, whether that be a deep and wonderful sleep or a movie, a funny movie that you're about to watch, or the fact that you're going to be able to be one with or hug somebody that you're sleeping beside. So as the sun goes down, I want you to create conscious thoughts around things that are pleasant in your life and things that you're looking forward to. And if you do this, without allowing the anxiousness to take up your focus and energy, then you'll begin to interpret the changing in heart palpitation or movement as being a positive thing rather than a negative thing. So intuitively, this is what we want to do, because you're so well practiced. It's been 8 months now. It's been so well practiced that anytime the evening comes around or the sun sets, that you will experience heart palpitation, and that's a bad thing, or increased heart rate. An increased heart rate is not always a bad thing. An increased heart rate, more often than not, is a good thing. The difference between anxiousness and excitement are pretty much nil. There is no difference between the two. The only difference is which interpretation are you going to believe, the one from your lower self or the one from your middle self, right? From the unconscious part of you or the conscious part of you. So don't allow your lower self to play tricks on you, to say this is a bad thing. And sooner or later, as you watch the sunset, you're going to realize how beautiful it really is. And the interesting thing is this, is that when you start to take control of the interpretations of things, then that becomes as habitual as your anxiety once was. This is something that a lot of people don't really get. You know, as automatic as your anxiety has been and your fear has been, so can love, so can calm, so can inner peace, so can joy, so can contentment. And all these things can be just as automatic. So I believe it was Zen that said in Zen practice, you're only a tenth of an inch. There's only a tenth of an inch between heaven and hell. And so if you have programmed yourself to be fearful, you can program yourself to be peaceful. That's front and center. But we have to first tell people that this is an option, right? But going back to your question there, Dream IGN, that's what I would do. I hope that speaks to you a little bit there. Of course, you know, you can always use, and of course, I always default to imagery practices. So there is an imagery practice on my YouTube channel here called Future Reframe. So you can future reframe it, like in the morning, you can do the future reframing practice, and you can start to imagine how you want to feel when the sun starts to set. Because this is nothing more than a paradigm. Understand that, right? This is nothing more than a belief system. That's all it is. Let's not make it anything crazier than that. So that video will help as well. Melissa McPhee, Dennis, will the inner parenting help with waking panic attacks? Oh, 100%. Absolutely, absolutely. Waking panic attacks might have something, well, most likely has something to do with a past experience around the mornings, around a certain time of the day, around an experience that you had with your loved one sleeping beside you. So when we experience a panic attack, I think what's very, very important is to get to the reflection stage and reflect on what the message is. Where's the panic? Because the panic attack is not a conscious buildup. It's an unconscious buildup. Okay? So if it's an unconscious buildup, we reflect and say, why is my body, well, first my mind and then my body, why is my system, projecting all this panic? What is the reason for this heightened state of fear? And so you start to write a few things down. You wake up in the morning, right? Of course, after you've gone through the panic attacks. But in regards to the panic attack, there is something very important that you can do. And what's interesting with the panic attack is that it creates a tunnel vision, right, where you only focus on the doom and gloom. So what we want to do is we want to take that tunnel vision and we want to expand it during the panic attack. So I highly recommend seeing, hearing, feeling. Look to the left and see what you see. Pay attention to it for a few seconds, right? Break it down. Look to the right, see what you see, right? And I don't like using the word try, but do this in a slow manner. Look to the right. Look to the left. Notice what you hear. Pay attention to what you hear on the left. Look to the right. Notice what you hear that's coming from the right side. Look to the left. Notice what you can feel on the left side of your body. Look to the right. Notice what you can feel on the right side of your body. And start expanding your perception over things so that you can move beyond that tunnel vision that says, oh God, like this is a do or die moment, right? So that's that. So, very, very powerful practice, but reflection, very key. Yeah. Let's see here. Matthew always has tremendous insight. During the height of my health anxiety, I would wake up in the night at 3 a.m. with panic attacks. I found meditation prior to sleep, and then when I woke, got rid of the cycle over time. So Matthew recommends absolutely some sort of meditation practice prior to sleep. I love it, that your system remembers upon any heightened anxiousness or panic that may show up. Absolutely wonderful habit to build, right? Let's see here. Yeah, so we're in the question stage, guys. If you guys want to get me to answer anything that may be on your mind, please ask away. Did that help, Melissa? Did that help what I just said? I hope so. Thank you so much. You're very welcome. Oh, great. I'm glad that spoke to you. Fantastic. Cheyenne, nice to see you. Hi, Dennis. I feel very tired after walking a few steps. How do I get my stamina back gradually? I have sitting work from home job. Any suggestions? Number one, check in on your level of adrenal fatigue. That would be number one. Number two, if you're not taking any kind of medication, I would highly recommend some kind of a herbal supplementation that can kickstart the adrenals again. Because there may be something lacking there. Okay, so that would be number two. Number three, I would have an intention, because when you're in this state, well, there's a couple more things here. When you're in this state of feeling tired, you're always expecting yourself to be tired. So it's a very apathetic state. There's a lot of apathy there, and any kind of physical movement will drain you mentally before it drains you physically. So you want to go for a walk, okay? Walking is fantastic in that state. I can totally recommend walking when you're in an exhausted or physically depleted state, along with what I just said, those first two things. But before you walk, make sure that you place an intention, okay? The intention that I am capable of walking 10 kilometers if I need to. So you don't default to the unconscious thing where you're going, well, I'm tired and I want to take it easy on me and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. That just brings you right down to a level that is so low, negative and low and depleted. So create the intention where you say, I can walk 10 kilometers if I need to. Now you don't do it at a fast speed, you do it at a slow speed, okay? And number four is please make sure that you get up multiple times while you're working. In fact, set an alarm where you're getting up for every hour. You're getting up for 2 to 3 minutes. You're stretching. You're walking in circles. I don't care. And while you're at work, make sure that your posture, I would buy one of those posture correctors, okay, where you're working on the computer, but you're still exuding a positive physiological state. So posture will go a long way towards how you feel So anybody out there that is working many hours on a computer, I would highly recommend a posture corrector while you're working on the computer, because every physiological state that you find yourself in has a corresponding emotional state to it. So especially with kids, like if you have a lot of kids, if you have kids, not a lot of, if you have a kid, make sure that, if you let them play video games or on the computer, they're not hunched over like this all the time on their phone or whatever they're doing. Just make sure that you remind them with one word to just kind of pull their shoulders back, and that will go a long way for them. Okay, so those are a few helpful things there. Does that help? A few of those suggestions. I've noticed today that I'm giving out suggestions, a lot of behavioral related suggestions, behavioral related. Some days there may be, I'm kind of moving more away from the mental feedback, because that can get quite complicated with people, I've noticed. So you'll notice in the last video, guys, where I just kept it really, really simple mentally. Like as you go through the day, just one word, cancel or flow, and that's that, right? It's not this long, drawn out tug of war between these two ways of thinking about something, but just I'm trying to really keep things as simple as I can with these answers, but practical. Let's see what questions we have here. Okay, cool, Cheyenne, awesome. Good, wow, good for you. I love that you wrote those down. Yeah. A2 Legend V2, any kind of throat related, I've noticed, yeah, introverted, recluse, yes, it's the avenue of expression, so anything related to throat, I would really reflect on expression. The person that needs to hear something from you in relation to something that happened in your past, or something that you're holding in that you need to speak up about. This is where, therapy and coaching can be very, very valuable, where you can really express things to these people, these professionals that you normally wouldn't be able to express to with everyday people. So anything throat related, for me, I've seen tremendous benefit with chair coaching as well. So please consider chair coaching or chair therapy. Powerful stuff. Those are all very, very helpful. Yeah. By the way, I love doing these lives with you guys. This one was a very random live. I didn't give much time to set this up or prepare for it. Unfortunately, that's kind of how I roll more often than not. I just kind of wing it. And people that are meant to hear something when I wing it like this are meant to hear it. So I just hope that there's a message today that spoke to you loudly. You think about OCD being hereditary, I kind of have a problem with that. I just cannot seem to get myself to believe that anything related to, fear-centered or safety-centered behaviors and reflexive thinking is hereditary. Like, I just can't seem to wrap my head around that based on so much research that I've gone through, I don't know, epigenetic stuff and heart math related. I just can't get there. I seem to always just be drawn back to when there's this connection between father and son or any kind of parent and child, this kind of passing on. For me, it's more so a passing on of programs, subconscious programs, passing on of habits, passing on of belief systems, passing on of behaviors. So I truly believe that it's really a process of detaching from, and a lot of people have difficulty stopping doing something that their parents did out of a fear of disconnection or unloving, kind of an unloving connection that they feel if they do stop doing what they're doing. Like, it's a very foreign place to be. For years you've had all these OCD related habits, right? And then all of a sudden you realize that mom and dad did very similar things, and now you realize how debilitating it is, and you've made a choice, a kind of a half-hearted choice to stop it and to kind of, implement a new habit. But at the same time, a part of you is saying, well, if you do, then you're just going to feel disconnected from parents, and they may not approve of it of some weird way, or something may go wrong, or like you're stepping into that world of the unknown, which is the biggest part of all this, of course, is the fear of the unknown. So I just can't get there, Cosmos. I do truly in my heart believe that it's an unlearning process, and at some point we really have to come into our own with this whole thing. Come into our own. And when I mean into our own, I mean, like, what do you believe about you? What do you believe about you? Not what other people have said or what Twitter says about humans or this or that. Not the outside programming. Not that. Not even the programming coming from your lower self that we talked about today. But what do you believe about you? What do you believe about your connection with other people? Because when you move up these stages, a very interesting thing happens. Anxiety for me, and this is a weird thing to say, right? But I kind of came to grips with this after a while. Anxiety was a very selfish time in my life. And I'm not saying that you're selfish. I'm not saying that I was selfish. But when I looked at this objectively, I realized that a lot of the anxiety that I felt had a lot to do with me trying to better my life and to take care of me and fill my own needs, and everything was about me back then. Like, am I going to be okay? And what was really interesting was as I moved up the stages, I realized that there really is no connection, no disconnection between me and, say, others out there. And so I got to a place in my life, like today, for example, I was at the gym, I was working out, and I played some paddle. I started looking at people, and I started to, maybe it's an empath thing, I don't know, but I started to feel people's pain a little bit. I started to feel their emotional pain. I started to feel some of their heaviness and stuff. And I was like, I just felt so in love with everybody in that moment. And it wasn't like this, oh, you have to be nice to me and I have to say the right thing to you and we have to build a relationship together type of a thing. I just felt so connected to people. So I believe that I'm kind of ranting right now, but I believe that connection, when you start to feel, when you start to realize that, we're not really all that different. You start to be less hard on other people, and you start to consider other people's needs as much as yours, and that helps with the anxiety. I believe that helps. Sharice, good morning. Good morning, Jamaica. Good morning. Yeah, morning time. More waking up to YouTube Live. Only 76 minutes in. Nick says that selfish approach is very true. I can relate. And a lot of people will not be able to relate to it. And that is fine. I get it. But it's worth considering because it can be helpful. Barry McKean, can a physical practice, cure you for a week and then fade away and make you feel bad again with anxiety, stress, and depression, like a placebo effect? Absolutely. When you mean physical practice, do you mean like exercise? Or do you mean like somatic work? Like what is the physical practice? Like, for example, with me, when I do imagery-based work, there's always a somatic component to it, right? There's always a somatic component to it. Like, for example, like I'll ask people to picture something. When you picture something, imagine that it's floating in the space around you. And when you picture that, grab it and make it a little bit bigger and then make it a lot bigger. Notice how the feelings start to change. Shrink it, throw it behind you, throw it in front of you, play with it, make it black, red, whatever. So I get them, that's a kind of a somatic imagery process that is very, very powerful. Like physical, turning off electronic devices. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are very helpful lifestyle habits, right? Lifestyle patterns. But let's not confuse lifestyle changes with doing the deeper work here. Like, you could, going to bed at an earlier time is absolutely beneficial. Turning off electronics 90 minutes, 120 minutes prior to sleep, truly beneficial. And this will bring you a certain amount of relief, right? A certain amount of healing and a certain amount of relief. However, if there has been suppressed feelings in specific parts of your body that have accumulated, such as anger in the throat, such as fear and knots in the stomach, such as tightness in the shoulders, such as bodily tension in the arms or muscle twitching. Muscle twitching has a lot to do with the fear of being seen, for example. If you got muscle twitching, if you've got shaking, trembling, that has a lot to do with trying to project yourself. That has a lot to do with pride and ego, right? So projecting yourself in a way that will be approved of others. I've made these connections over the years. You tell somebody this and they've never considered that. So lifestyle changes and understanding the messages coming from your body are two different things. Okay? Lifestyle changes are great, but if the anxiety lingers or bodily sensations are still screaming at you or there's a physical discomfort or challenge of some sort, it's nothing more than a wake-up call. Let's see here, Melissa McPhee. Dennis, can you give a good example of being selfish but selfless when it comes to trying to find the time to help yourself without feeling guilty or hurting others? Okay, so here's what I believe, Melissa. Honestly, when people say that they have a difficulty finding the time, I believe that is connected to fear. And not fear consciously, but from the lower self or inner child fear. Because the inner child will come up with a number of excuses and defense mechanisms to get you not to do something that may create some change physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So let's first and foremost consider that. Okay? The second thing is I believe that this has a lot to do with the doership stage, where it's doers have a very difficult time saying no to people, because when doers say no, they feel like they're going to be missing out or labeled or judged by others wrongly. And if they're judged by others wrongly, then at a reptile brain level, that feels like you're disconnected from the herd, and therefore you'll have a very difficult time going forward. So, so this is twofold. One is there's a fear when it comes to trying to find the time to help yourself, underlyingly, I believe. And two, there needs to be, well, what I just mentioned, but three, there needs to be the mindset of you cannot be as valuable as you want to be to the people that you love and to the world as a whole until you put yourself first. Okay? If you don't put yourself first, then what happens is the unconscious way that you communicate with other people is going to be most likely in a negative state of consciousness, if that makes sense. Because doers have a lot of suppressed energy, and there's suppressed anger there often, but there's also a lot of courage. There's a lot of good energy to be used there. But doers have a very difficult time placing priority on the things they need. And in order to move up the states of consciousness and overcome anxiety for good, you have to prioritize yourself first. It doesn't. There's no way around it. You just can't move up by continuing to do the things that you're currently doing and the way you're doing them and putting others first. It's not going to happen. So, but when people bring out these types of very good questions, I always look at the unconscious motivation. What's the unconscious motivation to keeping me doing these things in the way I'm doing them today, right? For example, someone says, I can't meditate. How do you know? How do you know you can't meditate? What do you mean? What does that even mean, I can't meditate? Everybody in this world has the potential to meditate for hours and days and days and hours and days, right? But someone, of course, who's, in scattered thinking and is experiencing anxiety needs to meditate 1 minute 3 times a day. But that's still meditating. You can meditate. You just have to rearrange it. Yeah, you're welcome there, Barry. Cool. That helps. Good. Awesome. Pay more attention to everything rather than just a small life. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's see here. Neil Dickinson, thank you for the engagement. Can a troubled childhood have an impact on your life 30 or 40 years later? I get a lot of debilitating physical symptoms that have left me bedbound. I get palpitations a lot. I'm sorry to hear that. Many of us have been in that state. We can relate. Can a troubled childhood have an impact years, decades later on? More often than not, it does. It's not the fact that can it just is. It just does happen, because in your teens, in your 20s, in your 30s, there's a lot of distractions, right? In your teens, socializing, whatever. 20s, schooling, going into the work life. 30s, you're growing, whatever it is you're growing, and you're looking forward with the mortgages and this and that and whatever the system tells you to do. And then in your 40s, 50s, you start to take a step back. And the moment you take a step back, everything that you've distracted from all these years starts to come to the forefront. Right? That's why I work with a lot of people in their 50s, 60s, even 70s, 80s. I know one lady. But what's interesting is if you've got the right attitude towards these things, I haven't really seen a difference between someone who's in their 20s or 30s who looks to heal from anxiety and someone who's in their 70s or 80s. I don't. So what's been proven to me is that in general, it can be more difficult as time goes on to release the suppressed feelings and emotions and clear anxiety. However, with the right mindset, it can happen just as fast. So Neil Dickinson, I truly believe that, what I just mentioned there. Oh, you're definitely, Melissa, you're in a safe place. And we can all really relate to each other. Whenever I do these talks, online, offline, my programs, it's all coming from a place where you are. You know, it really is. But just understand that you're getting there, and there, will come in time. But we can all relate, and it's really nice to be amongst people that, are struggling, and we can relate to one another, we can help each other, we can listen to one another. Just the fact that I used to write down comments just like you guys are writing down, and for people not to go, well, just suck it up. This is something I got often, and just suck it up, or just learn to relax, or just take a deep breath. Just put it behind you. These people who experienced anxiety but thought, those are those people that gave me that advice still had anxiety, but they didn't make the choice to heal. And that's the difference. They thought it was a chronic thing, and they thought that that's just the way they are, constantly in a state of worry and anxiousness and fear. But I made the decision that this isn't the way life should be. I shouldn't be seeing everything as a threat, So, Dan Zamed Vargar. I've been raised by two dysfunctional parents, I'm guessing. My father is a violent psychopath. All my life I have been codependent personality. I seek men like him. 6 years ago, recovery has started, and you have helped me a lot. That is beautiful to hear. I'm so, when I hear stories like that I could be a part of somebody's journey, healing journey, it's everything for me. It really is. It makes me feel like, the work that I'm doing, is making a difference. If anybody out there makes you feel like this stuff is easy, most of the time it's not. Let's see here. Let's see, what do we got here? Adriana Gianu, welcome. Hey, I'm 19. I have debilitating anxiety still sometimes. Sometimes I get very dark thoughts from my lower self. I like how you called it lower self. All right, cool. God, we had so many terms for that part of us over the years, haven't we? But I understand them now. Beautiful. They are just thoughts. Ooh, do they ever go away? Good question. Actually, great question. Okay, so here's what happens. The mental chatter starts to subside. Okay, so the constant mental chatter starts to subside. The lower self becomes less opportunistic in terms of looking for things that are wrong or could go wrong later on in the journey. So those things start to happen. in terms of mentally, what tends to happen is there's more time being mentally neutral, if that makes sense, then this is exciting and this is sad, or this makes me happy and this makes me sad or anxious or fearful. Mentally, you start to kind of float in this middle ground later on in the journey, as you go forward, and as you find your true self, and you find that you can surrender to the things that you fear. And surrendering to the things that you fear doesn't mean you succumb to them. It means you're no longer resisting them. You're no longer fighting with them, and that comes over time. So those things start to happen. Yes, would I say that they go away completely? That's still up for debate. It really is. If talking from personal experience, I guess they do show up from time to time, but because I know where they're coming from, and because I see them like this now, those ideas from the lower self, there's just no energy or focus or behavior that shows up because of them. And I just find that when you defy them constantly, when you defy them mentally or defy it behaviorally or verbally, you speak out of line with your lower self, then it starts to shut up, right? It starts to just shut up, because it's just this incessant mental chatter back in the day where, like, holy smokes, like, will this ever stop? So those are the things that start to happen. I hope that answers your question. It's getting dark here. It's getting dark here. Guys, we've got time for one more question. We've got time for one more question. Let's see. Neil, thank you, Dennis. Very welcome. I am 50 next year. Good. And feel the last 4 years are a waste. No, not at all. Came from a broken home. I wasn't care. I'm sorry to hear that, my friend. I'm very grateful for you as well for sharing that, being open to that. But please don't think the last 4 years was a waste. Yeah, you had to go through what you had to go through, and to come to the reality that you're finding now. And the other thing I urge everybody to do is please do not live your life based on the age that you are at. In fact, sometimes people ask me how old I am, and I forget. And I find that that's the most freeing thing ever. Because the moment I say a certain number, then the conversation kind of goes astray, and the commitments and the judgments and the capabilities and the liabilities, all this sort of shit shows up. Said the word. But just forget your age, honestly. Just forget it. Just forget how old you are, really. And understand that anything that you've been through in your past was just setting you up for where you are in the present and where you're going in the future. I really believe that. Yeah, and freedom is on its way. So let's take one more question here, guys. Anybody that has a question, I will answer that. Give this YouTube live a like if you'd like more at this time. Does this time work for you? Give it a like. Let me know that it does. Hit that like button. If you've enjoyed it, if there was one really good piece of moment of clarity or piece of wisdom that came to you, hit the like button, let me know. Let's see here. Nick, how are you again? Dennis, is it possible that after the frantic stage, we feel better and lighter, but you feel something is still lurking around the corner? Just the feeling that something isn't quite gone yet. Yes, 100%, 100%, 100%. Just remember that you have to go through your day very mindfully at the start, right? Don't think that just because you're making progress that you can completely allow yourself to go unconscious fully, because if you go unconscious fully and just say, hey, I'm just going to let everything go and not be mindful of the ideas that are crossing my mind or the interpretations I have of what I'm feeling in my body. If you go completely unconscious, then that's an opportunity that the lower self will take to move you towards catastrophe again. We don't want that. So it is absolutely normal that you feel something in the background as you move towards unknown worlds, and that means mentally and emotionally and everything else. And just the best way to approach that is to say, I bring you with me. You want to linger? Hey, fear, you want to linger? I bring you with me. Anxiousness? I'm not going to turn this from anxiousness to anxiety. If I feel anxious, I bring you with me. I'm going to have this conversation. I'm going to do that sport today. I'm going to go to that party. I'm going to start this creative act. And I know, lower self, that you don't want me to do this because I may make a mistake or I may be put down like I was in the past, but we no longer live by those belief systems. So I bring you with me. But what you don't do is fight with it. You don't engage in a tug of war of mental thinking with your lower self. If you do that, you will lose. Okay, I remind you now, you will lose every time you engage in a tug of war of thoughts between your conscious self and your lower self. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Keep it simple and just say, I bring you with me, right? And that's a loving way to respond to your lower self. Okay? Yeah. Hope that helps. I love you guys really from the bottom of my heart, and I am really, I'm inspired by you joining this live. If it helped, give it a like, and I hope to do many, many more in the future. The post video will be up, some very valuable information here that you can take and use towards your anxiety healing, and I hope that, I know, I don't want to say hope, I know that you will keep the progress going, stay on track. You're exactly where you need to be, my friends, and I love you. I love you so very much. I understand you. We understand you, and soon enough, you will be free, okay? You will be free. You will find that inner peace, and you will embrace it. So enjoy, and remember that you are more than anxiety, my friends, and I hope to see you very, very soon. Love you all.